Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Doreen Downing. I'm a psychologist, and I'm the host of this podcast, Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. What I enjoy about introducing my listeners to new guests is that every week it's a new story, a new life, a new journey we get to take because each person is so unique, so different. And what does it really mean to find your voice? And what does it mean to not have a voice? And today I'm introducing you to a new friend of mine, Grace Mosgeller. And hi, Grace.
Hello, how are you?
Really good today. You're on the East Coast, I'm here in California, and I think it's fabulous that, through the internet we get to connect and I get to introduce you to my listeners. You sent me a bio, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Sure. Grace Mosgeller is a gifted healer and soul purpose coach known as the Soul Purpose Sage. She is an expert at helping women entrepreneurs align their purpose and spirit with their people and profits. As a speaker, Grace inspires professional women to grow their business by mastering the relationships they have with themselves, money, and power. And she's had 25 years of experience in personal development, life mastery, and energetic healing modalities. And her journey led her to develop her own simple, quick, and effective self-healing methodology that helps her clients align with their soul purpose and profit quickly. In 2022, she published the second edition of her book, Freedom to Flourish. Stop hustling and launch your biz to the next level. Wow, Grace, I feel like I want to sign up for your programs. This is fabulous. I mean, I love the idea of the deeper connection with who we are here to be and express and also offer our gift and to do it in a, it sounds like a business. Business is kind of sometimes a dirty word, but it's not when we come from this more beautiful place inside. So, hello.
Hello, how are you? That was like a marvelous introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. Business can be a dirty word, but it doesn't have to be. It's like who you are. Like it's when you run a business, it's a reflection of the people at the top and of their values and what they think is important. And the more spiritual people, the more heart-centered people that really align their purpose with their profits, um, that's a good thing because we can really influence the world in a very, very powerful way.
I love you're starting to use some P's, profit
Profit,
and
people.
yes, and purpose. And so thank you. That already feels like you were waking up our listeners to listen more fully and deeply. Let me ask, because I always go there first, since, hello, you're my first, I don't know you. And this is one way I get to know you is at the same time people get to know you. So I always ask first a little history because today is about finding, talking about finding your voice. And not many of us come out at, babyhood and say, wow, I've got a voice. And hey, world, let me stand up and speak my message to you. So usually it's from challenges. And I'm curious just if you could give us some snapshots of early life for you.
Yes, so my early life on the outside really appeared like it was picture perfect. But in fact, it was picture perfect for my mom and dad and my brother and I. We just had to conform to their mold. And a classic example, because my parents were very brainiac, really valued knowledge and, of course, money and profit, and also contributing to the community. But they were very kind of like upper middle class, and we grew up in a blue collar neighborhood. But both my brother and I got to play an instrument,
Mm.
and he was older than I, so we got to listen to him play the viola every night. And I was really excited to tell my dad, yeah, I know what instrument I want to play because I researched it. It was like it was a privilege in our family of something fun. And so the day I was my turn to sit down and say what I wanted, I told him, Dad, I really want to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and he goes,
Yeah.
no, you don't. And
Oh.
I'm like, huh? I don't. When actually I knew I did. He goes, no, you don't want to play the saxophone. I'm like, really? And I'm like 8 years old. Like, really? What? And he says, no, no, you want to play the piano. And
Mm.
I really just kind of checked myself. And I do. I don't remember saying I wanted to play the piano. And he went on, and there was more conversation. And so just being an 8-year-old wanting to please parents and going along with them, I just kind of went, okay, well, whatever. And then the day the piano showed up and was delivered into the living room, I still just, wow, who's that for?
Mm.
And I ended up playing 6 years of piano. But it was that kind of parenting that was like driving. I mean, it was fully intentioned well, like become a well-rounded person. And pianos, any kind of music's really good for the brain. Um, but it wasn't my choice. They didn't listen to me. So I had, as all children don't, when you're really young, don't have the voice. And that's how mine was squished. And there's other little, there was some abuse in there, but it was mostly, there was some sexual abuse, incest, all that stuff. But but surprisingly, what was the hitch in my kitty up the most was really overcoming that control, the voice in my head. And I went through I left the house and graduated from college, and they've all of a sudden dropped their direction of me, like, okay, you're ready to go out into life. And it was like lost, so lost. I had a college degree that I really didn't want. I mean,
Mm.
it wasn't really what I was asking for. And they said, no, you can't have that. You should do this one. Okay. So I did what they said. And it took a while to get on my feet. But then, of course, if you have a lifetime of being who other people want you to be, then I, married somebody that wasn't the right fit, and really feeling alone in a marriage because I didn't know who I was. And when you don't know who you are, you fight depression. And it's very, very, very lonely. And I at that time I really didn't like drugs at all. So I didn't do that. That was like probably in the 80s. And I believe that's when all the Zoloft and things like that were coming in, being very, very popular. And I tried it once and I felt like I had a lobotomy. So I didn't like that, lots of control, right? And so I did diet, exercise, and 5-HTTP, which was um, a, serotonin uptake inhibitor. So that serotonin really makes you calm. I get too detailed sometimes. But um, how that relates to business, is that something that you think you want to hear?
Well, not yet. I really want to comb through what you've already said because there does seem to be a theme
Yeah.
coming up around you, and you just repeated it by saying that you came into later life, like into the marriage, and feeling like you still didn't have this voice. And I know I'm going to just wind back just a little bit to go back to that example you gave of coming in with a sense of knowing, speaking it, and not being heard. And in fact, somebody else having a different vision. So it's got to be confusing for a child to say, "Oh, that's what I no," so that sense of, because I'm feeling like we understand who we are. We know who we are if somebody mirrors back, if our parents mirror back to us what we say out loud. "Oh, that's what you want." "Oh, well, it's a little I'm not sure girls do that, but," or whatever reason, or maybe you'd get more refinement if you did the piano. I don't know, his image of you, so that, wow, you stepping into somebody else's image and for 6 years playing piano. You did touch briefly, and I know sometimes people don't want to, and I know it's not about blame, but you mentioned abuse and sexual abuse, sexual molestation. Could you say just a little bit more about that?
So I really didn't. I mean, the only thing that I, consciously remembered is my cousin coming over and fondling me during a time at my grandparents' house, and I just remember being so super confused, and like he was 7 years older than me. He
Uh-huh,
was my best friend. Like they would come to visit, and I'd be like, "Yeah, all over him. Let's play." And
uh-huh.
then that happened, and
Yeah,
then for the rest of my life, I was um, if I was best friends with somebody, I would like feel either like I had to run away from them, I couldn't get close, or I had to sleep with them. And I had values where I don't sleep with men. So there was another confusing thing, unless I was married. That's confusing. And so there was a lot of oh hobbling, just like skirting the issue. And yeah, that was pretty confusing. And then when I couldn't skirt the issue, then I would lay back and I'd be um, being made love to, I think. But and I was receiving it, but not really there. And
this is
because
so important what you're saying right now about voice and about being in an environment that it seems safe, but it's not safe at the same time. And I'm just going to apply it to some of my listeners because I know lots and lots of stories. And so I've heard from listeners or from people I've worked with that this sense of an audience, or whoever you're speaking with, doesn't feel safe for them. That it's a very scary place because the safety issue they haven't learned what safety really feels like. And I'm hearing from you this idea that, uh, all right, here's my best friend. Isn't it safe? Oh, ooh, no, it
oh
isn't.
yeah, no, it isn't. Yeah,
And
yeah,
how
no,
that pattern repeated itself. Thank you for opening that up for us today.
yeah. That was I had a lot of confusion growing up. Like I don't know who I am, and then and sexuality and friendship it's strange. Another childhood trauma, and then granted, these took a long time for me to get through, and because of that, that's why I came up with my little signature modality to make it go a lot quicker. And
Good. I look
so,
forward to speaking about that in a few minutes. Yeah,
but
thank you. But we're getting the background now.
I know, but
Why?
I'm just trying to tie it all together. So, okay, I just didn't want to sound like a lame person, but we all are, we all don't leave childhood unscathed. So I had friendship trauma, or was it playmate trauma? So for some reason, and to this date, I still don't know the reason. I lived in Southern California, and on the street there was like two houses that had a swimming pool. And the one house, so where is it? Two houses. The one house, it was just off limits, and then the other house, a bunch of kids lived there, and the whole neighborhood got to go over there and swim and play. And I played. I think I swam there like once or twice, and then they shut me out. They wouldn't let me play. And then we would also play baseball as there's probably like 20 kids on the block, and we played baseball. And when it was my turn to come up to bat, they always say, "No, you can't bat." And then they'd put me in the outfield where nobody ever hit. And I was like devastated. To this day, I don't know why. Like, what? but I must have done something or said something, but
Uh-huh.
I had to do a lot of soul searching and really validating how much that hurt. Because you put walls up around that and you isolate yourself and then you have no friends and then you're lonely. So the
You
way I
just went
approach
really fast. I liked what you just said. Go back and say that again, because that's important to hear.
okay, what did I say is
Oh, that uh, you had used the example of, being rejected or being on the outside, and then you said people build walls around themselves, then they get isolated, and then they get lonely.
yes.
And then how are you ever feel confident to speak and, show up and express yourself in a way that reaches people? Because you have your walls around you and you're not
Yes.
letting people in and you're not letting yourself out. But, so that's what I heard. I just wanted to repeat it because that is a dynamic that I think really traps people inside a wall.
Majorly. And well, and like, so, there's many kinds of walls, like and I can say them because I had them. So
Yeah.
I had the wall where I felt like I wasn't good enough. And then I also had a wall, depending on the situation, where I was better than everybody else, which, kind of makes you arrogant. Nobody likes you there either.
Well,
And so
what would be something that you felt you were better than?
well, it's embarrassing to say, because I don't want to be arrogant, but I came from a brainiac family and I inherited all those brains.
Ah,
So I am super swift, super smart, super
y
quick, and
yeah,
I can, listen to one little story or one set of words and understand a whole set of dynamics behind it in a millisecond.
yeah,
And not everybody can do that, which was confusing to me because everyone in my family did. And I felt that I was the stupid one.
uh-huh,
And it took me until I was like 42 before I realized, you know what?
uh-huh,
I'm a little bit smarter than these people around me because they're
uh-huh,
always trying to prove
yeah,
that I
shrink,
was smart enough.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
What you mentioned, college, what did you study? And you said even that seemed to be somebody else's idea.
So that's fun. So here's another story. So my brother, I was also brought up in the 50s where men were treated as more important than women. And I was raised by a PhD engineer who ran research and development for a major oil company. So very logically minded. So my brother, he got to go to Davis and to Stanford, and he got to apply to MIT. And and so he went that path. But when it came time for me, my grades were just good enough to get into a state college. So they got out the map. He says, "What college you want to go to, Grace?" I'm like, "I don't care. I just want to be out of here." So I picked the one at the far,
The
you're in
farthest?
California. I picked Humboldt. He goes,
Uh-huh,
"Same story." "Oh, you don't want to go there?" And I'm like, "Why not?" He says, "Well, there's too much fog there. There's no sunshine. It rains a lot." I'm like, "Oh, good point." So yeah, at least I could say good point. And then and we had kind of deciphered what did I want to do, and I decided I wanted to be a nurse simply because my best friend was going and she was going to nursing school only because we watched General Hospital.
yes.
So
Sunny.
funny. So that's just how she watched it more than I did. But so that's how just how we pick things.
I know those characters. I watched them for a while, Luke.
Yeah, it's been so long. I
Uh,
think I liked One Life to Live a little bit better. She liked General Hospital a little bit
yeah,
better. So I the next school that had a good nursing program was Chico, which was 100 miles north of Sacramento, and that's where I ended up going. But before I ended up there, he was pointed out San Luis Obispo, and he would sit there. There's another confusing thing. He would say, "Well, Grace, you could go to Chico, but if you went to San Luis Obispo, the
uh,
ratio of men to women there out is much better. You might find a good husband there." And I'm like looking at him going, what message are you? I was so confused
Yeah.
because I wasn't supposed to find a husband. I wasn't supposed to be with a man, but yet I was. And I was supposed to have a good career, but no, I wasn't. So it was just all this confusing messages. So I ended up going to Chico, enrolled in the nursing program. And because high school was incredibly easy, I would just look at something, yeah, got it, and then go play and take a test and get, passable grades or A's. I had to have B's or better, so that's what I got. And if I didn't have B's or better, I didn't get to play, so I got B's or better
Yeah.
because I like to play. So first, didn't know what a syllabus was, and that's kind of important when you're in a college. And so I didn't really realize when the tests were.
Mm.
And so I flunked out of anatomy. And I said, Dad, I need another year. And he goes, oh, no, you don't.
Wow.
Oh, no, you don't. You have 4 years, figure it out. I'm like, okay. So I looked through, all the requirements for degrees and I came across, well, I can do agriculture. So I ended up getting a degree in agronomy, and growing 5 acres of wheat was my senior project.
My goodness. Well, the stories you're telling, in spite of the confusion and in spite of the messages, you seem to keep on going. And I can't wait to hear more about the method that you've designed and developed based on all of what you've already told us. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll come back and get to hear that.
Okay, sweet.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Hi, we're back now, and we've been hearing from Grace Mosgeller about her history, and the word that keeps coming back over and over and over is confusion. Finding your voice in the midst of other people telling you what you should think, what you should play as an instrument, where you should go, what you should study, makes you feel like I don't know who I am. And the other challenge we learned earlier in the episode was about Grace putting up walls, and what she said about, yeah, there are different kinds of walls we put up, like walls around our self-esteem, walls that keep people away from us, but those walls keep us isolated. So from a very challenging early life, you have found, obviously, because you're out there giving your gift to the world, and you've written a book. So tell us the transition. What was the wake up to the more that you're now able to offer?
So the wake up call was my children were displaying the same symptoms that I was, except for worse. And that I was acting exactly like my dad and
Uh,
towards them, which no mother, nobody should be a parent like that. It's, the moment I really realized what I was doing, it was pretty like I was really angry at God. Like, how dare you make me a parent? How
mm,
dare you? So that was the wake up call. And so that started 25 years of personal growth and development. And since I didn't have the role modeling, and I didn't know that I didn't know who I was in the beginning. That was later. I still thought I was right, right? And so I just inhaled spiritual principle books, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Barbara DeAngelis, Brian Tracy, all those greats. And then all the leadership roles. Brian, what's his name? John C. Maxwell. I walked on fire at the Tony Robbins and did his whole mastery program. And then along the way, I became a coach and did Coach University back in the early days when they would send you what did I had to, I don't know, there was just volumes of things I had to print out and put in binders.
mm,
And but what really woke me up was about 5 years ago. I realized there's something called a soul purpose.
Oh,
And I realized there was something that there were categories of that you could um, categories of people, profiles, like almost archetypes of people
mm,
that it gave you a framework of who you were. And how that was helpful for me was I could identify my behaviors. And then it was almost like put them in a chart, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh, that's who I am. Who knew?
yeah.
And like I didn't know I was a leader, but that's the sole archetype of a leader. I had all the defensive qualities.
Uh-huh.
And I had no offensive qualities because I was squished and I didn't know I was a leader. And so as soon as I realized that, then I did the work to integrate and accept and forgive and all that happy stuff. That's not so easy, but I made it easier because um I figured if it's hard for me,
Uh-huh.
there's no sane person in the world that's going to go through this and still have a job and raise your kids and move on. There has to be a faster, quicker, easier way to doing it. So the more I embraced my role as a leader, the better my voice became. And like you can hear my voice now. Um, Before that, I had several brick and mortar businesses and I did everything right except for the networking. I hated the networking. Like I would go to a networking event and walk in and like if I could control the situation by asking everyone else, what do you do? I was fine. But the moment the spotlight was on me, I would fluster and fragment and leave. And one time I threw up. One time I couldn't even get out of the car. I was in an interview for I was an esthetician, I had my own little spa there for a while, and they put a microphone in front of me for a fancy, shiny, I had a fat burning machine that came with a commercial recording, and thinking I needed a fancy, shiny, brighter machine to bring people in. But the moment they put the microphone in front of me, I felt no anxiety. I knew what I was going to say, and started asking me questions, and I started talking. My throat got tighter and tighter and tighter, and pretty soon nothing came out. I'm talking like this. And so she cut the recording, and thankfully the salesman was there and he took over and I just stood there looked pretty. So I had I had the commercial, but yeah. And I'm like, but once I started really embracing my unique qualities, like for me, I'm out of the box. I don't think like everybody else. And I don't like to follow rules when I was brought up in follow these rules, follow these boxes. So I felt like my wings were clipped.
Yeah.
So the more I let go of the rules that bound me, the freer I felt. And the freer I felt, and I could self validate myself, the more confidence I had within myself to speak my truth, to speak just authentically. And then the part of me that was very organized, and the part of me that had a big heart, and the part of me that um, just loved unconditionally and just was so super sensitive, so empathic, so intuitive, and then on the defensive side, I would hide and isolate and say, poor me. And that's also when you're okay, well, that's another thing. So poor me. And then or I would be resentful in relationships where I would give and give and give, right? And we've heard this one before. And we don't get back what we think is, we don't get back anything. And so I become secretly resentful and maybe passive aggressive. Or we stop our creativity, our flow, and we get really depressed, or we become so rigid in our rules that we micromanage, and we get really upset if somebody doesn't cross the T or dot their I, which in the big scheme of things is it's nice to be complete, but it's not life of that, right?
Mm.
Just not.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh,
so um and slowly, like I wasn't really trying to get my voice back. I just really wanted to, and that's why I do Activate Your Soul's Money Making Genius. I just wanted to make money working for myself. I could do it if I was working for someone else, following someone else's rules, right? That's how I was raised. But for myself, that was the big challenge.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that the listeners are following you on your journey from the challenges earlier on to now the challenges of being who you're here to be. And that feels like it's a wonderful kind of self-discovery and increasing awareness and um, actually the courage to put yourself in situations and reading those books and walking on fire. And the journey to find yourself, be yourself, and speak authentically. Uh, I I want to give people a little bit of a teaser. We're almost out of time about your book and the process you mentioned. So let's make sure and do that.
Well, here's my book. It's called The Freedom to Flourish: Stop Hustling and Become Profitable. Um, and in here, so I wrote this about halfway through my Discover Who I Am process. But in here are the exact, well, like I work energetically with the world of the invisible, the chakra system, and it's not just opening or shut or healing them. We're healing consciousness. So the consciousness of each of the chakra levels, and it's in a systematic way. If I can remember, um, it's how to. I'll go as fast as I can here. So it's how to up-level your powers of influence, how to up-level up the confidence to do what you love and prosper. It's how to up-level your personal value and deservingness, and double, triple, or quadruple the effects of the actions that you take. And that comes from being in alignment with the purpose of your soul, because when you're in purpose with your soul, you're co-creating with the divine. And we talk about your dead creators, how to make friends with your inner critic, your inner skeptic, and really embrace your many shadows. Because when you do that, when you embrace, quote, your dark side, your shadow side, or the part of you that you really want to reject the most, that principle, what you resist persists, that actually frees you to have your voice, to speak your truth, and to actually create your own little version of heaven on earth. And real quickly, the process I take everybody through, and it's on my website in little bite-sized programs, that you can just buy and do on your own. But basically, I train you, teach you, train you how to really connect with your soul's essence. And it's a feeling, we manifest with feeling. And the soul feeling feels like joy, feels like peace, feels like unconditional love. And how to get that and vibrate that into every cell in your body. And then that's truth. And that's when you're connected to heaven and to earth and to divine, and you're actually co-creating with the divine. And from that becomes your power and your strength. And you develop that, you can start right now. And then as you really call back your energy into who you are, who your soul's personality and purpose is, that becomes a self-validating, tangible response. Much like when something is salty or sweet, that's something tangible that that nobody else knows that you're feeling. But the feeling of confidence, that feeling of faith is what the first step does. And that's the relationship with yourself and with the divine. And then for actual really reconnecting your relationships with love, intimacy, romance. I was very codependent with my children because I had a lot of guilt over how I raised them. And actually how to overcome that is all from these 3 steps, and then your relationship with power. And so
Ooh, well, this lining up is what you're talking about, and what I got was the soul in the way that, sometimes people talk about, or, we think soul is so mysterious, but listening to you, I feel like, oh, it's us. Hello. It's
yes,
just
it
how do
is.
we be more of who we are? And what I loved about what you just said and how it goes, I guess, against what happened to you early on is the way that you said, "Oh, I recognize myself." Oh, the kind of
Oh, yeah, like, "Oh, there I am." Mhm.
yes, as
Yes.
opposed to what other people or especially what you said about parenting to your parenting was that, "Oh, no, I'm confused." It's like you have come out of confusion, and I think that's so listeners, anybody who experiences confusion, you got somebody who knows what who has been very deeply confused and who has found herself,
That's what my
found
ex-husband used to say, "You're confused."
yeah, and look at you now, so fully in your purpose and in your passion and in your power. Those are the 3 Ps that I'll end with. So, thank you very much for spending time with me today and, digging deep. I really appreciate that, courage to, unpeel and expose some of the more challenges that, we all go through.
Well, yeah, we all do, and it's not easy. It's becoming easier and easier for us to admit the more of us that, come on Dr. Doreen Downey's show and expose how they got their voice. And then it gives permission for more and more people just to step into their power. And when I say power, it's listening to yourself and developing that relationship with influencing yourself, influencing others, and creating the life that you want. That's power. And yeah, that's my mission. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
letting me
sharing.
share. I really appreciate it.
Good. You're seen and heard, my dear.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed this show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.